Welcome back to Mother Teresa Street in the heart of Pristina, the capital of Kosovo, for the second part of Europe District. More than 10 years after the end of the war, the situation remains volatile in Kosovo. Clashes recently erupted between ethnic Serbs and peacekeepers. Our reporter was allowed to follow NATO troops. We'll also meet our next guest in the program. Yanni Jakupi is a comic book author originally from Kosovo. He now lives in Spain and he will give us his vision of Kosovo. Well, let's move to our next story. Our correspondent met with Kosovo's Roma community. At the end of the war in 1999, many Roma were forced to flee their homes. Accused by the Albanians of having sided with the Serbs, they settled in lead-polluted camps. They lived there for more than a decade in very toxic conditions. They're now moving to new homes, but as we find out, their living conditions remain bleak.
Along the banks of the river Ibar, Mitrovica's new Roma neighbourhood. These houses have only been here for 2 years. The residents forced to abandon an older site, the camp at Česmin Lug, blighted by lead contamination.
We built houses for the Roma, but here there's no school. Children grow up without learning anything. People live like animals.
Living conditions here remain basic, yet Armando's friends are glad to have left their old camp at Česmin Lug. And there will never forget the day his 5-week-old baby died of lead poisoning.
Here our life is better. At the camp we were living in shacks, and when it rained there was water everywhere.
Oh yes, we were completely flooded. Every time. We didn't even have a bed to sleep on.
Contaminated water is one of the main causes of lead poisoning, a metal which when inhaled or ingested has potentially lethal consequences. These families were exposed to the substance for a decade. During the Kosovo War, Mitrovica's 8,000 Roma were forced to flee, many of them setting up camp near to an abandoned lead mine, a zone already heavily contaminated.
Contamination by lead brings you irreversible effects in organs, starting from, let's say, if there is a woman pregnant, the fetus, it's less likely that it's going to born normal.
Faced with the environmental situation, the European Commission demanded Kosovan authorities close the Česmin Lug camp and relocate its residents. Today, this is all that remains of Česmin Lug. Yet other camps remain, like this one in Leposavić, north of Mitrovica. Here too, families face major health hazards. Here too, the risk of lead poisoning is dangerously high.
There's a child with 64% lead in the blood.
Yes, that's right. And my brother also has it in his body.
You know, for 12 years now, our life has been really bad.
Really bad. My sister has 50% lead in her blood. It's worrying. She has some too.
Brussels also wants to dismantle this camp. These lodgings are set to be demolished in the coming months. The families moved elsewhere. Yet Kosovo's Roma communities are rejected both by ethnic Albanians, who since the war see the Roma as traitors, and by ethnic Serbs. Kaldun Sino's part of the EU delegation to Kosovo. He says the Roma need integrating into society, not just cash handouts from Europe.
Also, there's a cultural stereotype, which you also have in our societies. Of course, that has to be overcome. And there, I think policies, active, proactive policies of anti-discrimination, of positive employment are very important.
Among Kosovo's 40,000 Roma, stories of successful integration are few. Painters Faryar and Bayram, rare examples of Roma who've broken into mainstream society. Using only a few sheets of paper and children's poster paint, the brother and sister have produced works now on display at the Kosovo National Art Gallery.
With these paintings, I want people to discover Roma women, discover how they live, their clothes, their customs.
Clothes and customs portrayed in vibrant colours, the Roma women refined and beautiful, with scenes from Roma life a frequent theme.
Some people have prejudice about Roma people. These are false ideas.
Thank God we have this talent, and we can display Roma customs and above all show that the Roma are capable of creating beautiful things.
Here their paintings hang from a washing line, drying in the open air. An all too rare picture of success for a community still on the margins of Kosovan society.
The building behind me is run by EULEX. It's the EU's largest civilian mission. Together with NATO troops, they are responsible for preserving peace and enforcing the rule of law. There are 10,000 peacekeepers and international staff left in Kosovo. The region remains unstable. Recently, NATO troops clashed with ethnic Serbs. Our reporter Julie Dungelov was allowed to follow NATO soldiers. She brought us this report.
We're heading towards Mitrovica.
Here in northern Kosovo, NATO ground forces began operations following Western airstrikes in 1999. Their mission to keep the peace in this predominantly Serb region. Only weeks ago, German soldiers from the KFOR were shot at while attempting to dismantle a Serbian barricade like this one. 2 KFOR troops and 3 Serbian soldiers wounded in the exchange of fire. A fortnight later, unknown attackers threw 2 grenades at NATO barracks in the same area. Today, we head to Dock 31, a NATO base near the Serbian border.
Dock 31 is the post where the Scout Squadron platoon, under the tactical command of the Italian Operational Reserve Force, are based, just before the Serbian border post.
Last year, skirmishes broke out along this border, wounding around 20 Serbs and 4 NATO troops. Today, all seems relatively calm. We join a French team heading out on patrol.
We're now going to a checkpoint where some of our men are posted and where we watch over the road traffic.
At the border post, nothing out of the ordinary. Drivers stopping to let French soldiers inspect their vehicles. After 13 years deployment, the KFOR's become part of everyday life here. Troops' main task today not so much keeping the peace, but stopping cross-border smuggling. Despite last year's clashes, KFOR troops now serve partly as customs officers, partly as policemen, functions performed elsewhere by local authorities. Amid a fragile calm, their top priority, being present on the ground.
Our goal is to reassure the population, and people know that if there's any trouble, any violence, we're also here to intervene, completely impartially.
Helmets come off as the troops leave their vehicle, a simple sign for war-weary locals that residents have nothing to fear. The last stop today, a remote village, home only to a few inhabitants, happy to welcome foreign visitors.
I'm on my own here. My family is far away. Sometimes I'm a bit scared. I often see soldiers come through the village. I like seeing them. It's reassuring.
Here soldiers test the waters, listening to local concerns and promising to pass by another time. With everything calm, some say a gradual withdrawal could now be considered.
The handover is already underway. We're still here as backup for the local authorities, and we'll stay here as long as they need us.
Others, though, say Kosovo's calm is at best precarious, meaning the last French troops aren't leaving yet.
And it's time to meet our new guest in the program. Gani Yakupi is the author of several graphic novels, including this one, The Last Image, about his own story, his own experience as a young journalist who was sent to Kosovo to cover the aftermath of the war in 1999. Gani, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, welcome.
You chose to meet us on the shores of Batlava Lake. This is where you were born.
I was born on the mountains up there, but it's the area where I lived as a child. That's all we have. We don't have any access to the sea. All we have in Kosovo as water places is lakes.
Tell us more about your story. You were living in Spain during the war. What brought you back to Kosovo?
During the bombardments, I was on all the Spanish media, and they got interested in my story. They sent me after the war here to to tell my coming back to the country, but at the same time I wanted to know really what did happen and to inform about the situation in Kosovo. I came here the day the Serb troops retreated.
It must have been a difficult mission for you because you were supposed to report on the war, but this was a personal story. You lost loved ones during this war.
I came as a journalist. I had to be objective. You must see horrors and just write about it. You do not participate, but at the same time I was from here, I was born here, that I was touched emotionally, and it was very hard to conceive with both of them.
Well, Gani, let's enter your story and revisit these dark years of war, and we'll start with an abandoned school over there.
You see, on June '99, where with my photographer, we came across this school. It was abandoned, but it was guarded by an UČK militant. UČK was the Kosovo Liberation Army. He was there to prevent people from entering because Serb troops on their retreat, they put landmines under the pupils' desks. I think that was a very vicious way to symbolically undermine the Kosovo education system, to prevent people from education.
So the Serbs had left mines under the desks of the children?
Exactly, as you hear it. There was some other perverse ways to put the mines, not only in the combat fields, but in houses and schools and even in public places.
This school is more than a symbol because at the time Slobodan Milošević, the leader of Serbia, had forbidden the use of Albanian in schools.
The meaning of all that was to erase the Albanian identity from Kosovo, to leave the Albanian language and culture as something below, as something not worth. Now I want you to meet my cousin. He will take us to a place that is very tragic for our family. His brother Bećir was buried here, in this place. His own son, 30 years old, was buried here. Well, at this place, 8 members of our family were assassinated by the Yugoslav army during the NATO bombing. It's a shame that there has not been done more investigation on war crimes. What the ULEX is doing now, it's good, but it's too late and it's too slowly.
A war is never black and white. There were crimes on both sides. There were cases of retaliation on the Albanian side after the Serbs left. You agree with that?
Sure. When you have a war, you never have a soft army. Otherwise, you lose the war. UČK committed crimes. It may be possible, but it was not so planned, neither systematic as what did the Yugoslav army and Serbian paramilitary. But I think that there should be a distinction between the crimes committed during the war and the acts of revenge after the war.
Our next stop is Peja, the second largest city in Kosovo. In your book back in '99, you described it as a pile of ruins.
Exactly, it was only stones and burned down wood. There was nothing, almost no house left here. One can only guess that it was because of the proximity of Montenegro and Albania, and because the Serbs were very much attached to this city. The region is important to Serbia because the Patriarchate, the basic Serbian church, or the Serbian Autocephalous Church, is based here in Peja. And before, in the Middle Ages, the Serbian kings used to be crowned here.
This is the old bazaar of Peja. It's a very lively place. It's full of people.
It has been reconstructed almost entirely from the scratch. The people come here from Kosovo itself and even from our other countries because there are mountains, there are mountain lakes, beautiful sceneries, and even because the girls from Peja are reputed to be the best looking in Kosovo.
Pristina, back in the capital. This is a hotel which you mentioned in your book several times. It was the gathering point for foreign journalists during the conflict.
Time, yes.
You're very critical of the way photo reporters covered this conflict.
I had my reasons.
But you want to introduce us to one of your friends. You respect him very much.
Yes, Mitrovica he's a pioneer of Kosovo photography.
Is there one particular picture that really moved you?
I was here in the early 90s. Kosovars were demanding more rights. I was watching a protester. Suddenly, he decided to sit down. I realized he was trying to convince the crowd to sit as well, so as to turn the protest into a peaceful event. It was powerful. I saw the secret police behind me. They were about to confiscate my film, but I managed to run away and save this historic picture and publish it.
Gani, you want to close your novel and show us the new face of Kosovo. It's in this direction.
There we go.
Gani, this is Kosovo in 2012, a very young place, a very lively nightlife.
Yes, and a lot of people are surprised because when they come here they think they go to a country of refugees, but this is a country with a very young population. 70% of the population is under 30. They all go out every night unless it is snowing or something.
Well, it hasn't been snowing in the past 4 days. It's been very hot actually here in Kosovo. And I know one of your friends is playing tonight because you're also a musician. You've released an album called Connections. Your friend is playing just over there.
Yeah, he's a drummer and he's there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Gani, for showing us around through your graphic novel and bringing us to this new Kosovo.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Bye.
And thank you for watching this edition of Europe District. Next month we'll travel to the north of Europe. We'll be in Iceland, in Reykjavik, so don't miss a special edition of Europe District that will be at the end of July.